where she is pursuing a degree in social work. When Erin was 11 years old, her life was transformed on the night she was sexually abused by her cousin, someone she loved and trusted. As the abuse continued and she was forced to see her abuser in social situations, she struggled with self-doubt, panic attacks, nightmares, and the weight of whether to tell her terrible secret. Through her personal diary, written during the years of her abuse, Erin shares her journey through pain and confusion and inner strength, and ultimately forgiveness. Raw, powerful, and unflinchingly honest, Stolen Innocence is the inspiring story of one girl's struggle to become a woman and a bright light on the pain and devastation of abuse.
January 1998, 2:40 a.m. Dear God, please help me. I can't take much more. I can barely sleep anymore. The nightmares have me tossing and turning. In my sleep until I can't wake up and fall back asleep. I then start to imagine hearing things in my house or seeing shadows that really aren't there. This secret is killing me and I have to tell someone. What if Brian is right and no one believes me? How do I make him stop? If you're out there, God, please help. Those are the words taken from my diary when I was 12 years old. I published my diary into a book called Stolen Innocence. My diary starts off giving readers an image of my happy childhood, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, until one night when I was 11 years old and woke up to my teenage cousin sexually abusing me. It went on for 2 more years, 2 of the darkest and loneliest years in my entire life. I was threatened not to tell, and with no voice, I had nothing else I could do. With no voice, my only escape was writing in my diary. I began writing and didn't stop. I filled my diary with the detailed events that occurred. Weak and powerless, I felt as if I was slowly dying inside. The silence was killing me. As time went on, the abuse happened so much, I grew numb. My holidays were no longer times filled with happiness and celebration. Instead, a fight to survive. Knowing I would face yet again another night of abuse. Even when he was abusing me, his actions followed me every day through nightmares and flashbacks. October, 1:20 a.m. I just woke up from the terrible nightmare and can't fall back asleep. I have school in the morning, and I'm going to be exhausted. Brian was chasing me in my dream. I kept running and running on this road surrounded by cornfields. It seemed the more I ran, the longer the road got, and Brian was getting closer and closer. I eventually fell flat on my face, and Brian began attacking me. I immediately woke up, sweaty and shaking. I can't even get a good night's sleep without being haunted by my past. I just wish I could erase everything and start over. Sigh, Erin. I broke my silence in the spring of 1998 when I was 13 years old. I wasn't my cousin's only victim. He was abusing my younger sister too. On April 30th, 1998, I was brought to a place called the Children's Advocacy Center of Northwest Cook County, Illinois. Through my book, I talk about my day at the Children's Advocacy Center. It was at this center my sister and I broke our silence. It was the beginning of my healing process. At the Children's Advocacy Center, I loved it with fear and anticipation. My cousin's words stuck with me. I honestly felt no one would believe me. My mother, sister, and I were introduced to an advocate who explained her role in our case. Allie and I sat at a round table, coloring, while the advocate talked in a private room with Mom. When they returned, the advocate pointed out all the stuffed animals on the ground and explained when we were all done, we could each take one home. As my sister and I pointed out which stuffed animal we wanted, another woman appeared. Her name was Megan, and she explained she'd be talking to us in a private room. Since I was the older sister, I offered to go first. I was led down a hallway and into a small room. Inside the room, there was a small round table and chairs. I immediately noticed the extremely large mirror. When I sat down, I couldn't help but notice the 2 naked dolls under the table. My interview began with questions about my family. I was very open with the social worker, telling her about my sisters, about my family, my dog, and how I spent my summers in Wisconsin. 5 minutes into our conversation, she asked me if I could talk about my cousin Brian with her. I began staring at myself in the large mirror, afraid she wouldn't believe me. I took a deep breath and kept staring in the mirror. Little did I know, police detectives sat on the other side of that mirror, watching my entire interview. The time I slowly began to tell Megan about the times Brian abused me, the time I was locked in the bathroom. Then there was the time he trapped me in the closet, or the time he held me down on the bed. There was a time in grandparents' condo when I woke up in the middle of the night to him abusing me. I felt as if I was going to throw up. I told her about the abuse on Thanksgiving in the garage, and again on Christmas in the car. As I continued to stare at myself in the mirror, I could feel the tears forming in my eyes. For the first time, I was breaking my silence and telling someone what Brian put me through. Something I never thought I'd do. Eventually, the 2 naked dolls were placed in front of me. I suddenly felt dirty and shameful. Holding back the tears, and with Megan's support and encouragement, I showed her what Brian did to me. So many memories came flooding back, memories I tried to erase and put behind me. With Megan's incredible support, I got through the entire interview. She gave me a pat on the back and told me I did wonderful. When I returned to the waiting room, I could see my sister and saw the fear in her eyes. I turned to her and said, "Don't be afraid. There are good people here." When we were all done, my sister and I each picked out a stuffed animal. When the advocate and social worker spoke with us one last time, before leaving, telling us that we did an excellent job, and told my mother that they would be in contact. I remember walking outside right after my interview. The sky was blue and the sun was shining, and this overwhelming sense of relief and freedom came over me. Breaking my silence was as if I was just let out of prison. It was my first step in taking back control of my life again. As I pulled away from the center, I made a promise to myself by looking back and saying, someday I'll come back and say thank you. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for letting me break my silence. Thank you for saving me. It was on that day, April 30th, 1998, that I knew my cousin would never hurt me again.